Hello, my name is Neil, and this is a demonstration video of the Neltulz Quick SubD add-on for Blender 2.8. And before I get started showing you that, I'll just show you how the default behavior in Blender 2.8 works if you're using the Blender keymap preset. So for starters, I'll add a cube to the scene, and if you use the Control 0 hotkey on your keyboard, it will add a subdivision modifier to your object, and you'll notice that it retains the flat shading on your object. So to clean that up, you just right click, go to smooth shading, and then you can continue subdividing your object as normal. But when you're ready to disable that and you go to Control 0, you'll notice that your object retains its smooth shading, and for a cube that's not a very good idea. So you have a couple of options. You can either go back to flat shading, or you can keep smooth shading turned on, and you can go to your auto smooth normals, turn that on, and that'll work pretty well for a cube. And as you continue to subdivide your object, it will retain those sharp edges if they're sharp. However, if you go to the first preset, the auto smooth tends to interfere because now it thinks that these are sharp edges, so that's no good. This can be kind of annoying because when you're trying to alternate quickly between a non-subdivided cube and a subdivided cube, you'll find yourself having to mess with this auto smooth value to try and get rid of all these sharp edges. And sometimes you'll find that it interferes with your non-subdivided result. So the way you deal with that is you go to edit mode and you mark the edges that you would like to be sharp as sharp. And at that point, you now think everything's great. So then you go back to object mode and you subdivide yet again. And now you've got this artifact where the subdivision is trying to retain the edges that you marked as sharp. And so then in order to get rid of that, you have to turn off auto smooth. Well, this becomes a really annoying game of just trying to play cat and mouse with which options you need to turn on and off, which angle values you need to set, which edges you need to set as sharp. And so my Quick SubD add-on takes care of all of that and makes it pretty simple. In addition to that, if you go to your Edit Preferences menu and you go to your keymaps and you happen to be using the industry compatible preset, you actually lose the ability to use your Control 1 through 0 hotkeys in order to subdivide preview your mesh. So to get started, I'll go to my Edit Preferences menu and I'll add the Quick SubD add-on right here, turn that on. And you'll notice that you now have a panel on the sidebar that shows Quick SubD version 1.0.0 and a whole bunch of options. If you don't see that, it might be hiding, so you can click this little arrow right here and it'll pop that up, and then you just make sure you have the Neltulz Quick SubD tab selected, and you should be able to see everything. So for starters, I have 3 different subdivision modes, and these are just presets for toggling on and off a subdivision preview of your mesh. So if you choose off, nothing will happen if you're looking already at a non-subdivided mesh. If you choose on, then you'll get a subdivided object, and you'll notice that the smooth shading is automatically taken care of. And then on plus is the exact same thing, but it also applies to the cage. And you can only see that if you're in edit mode. So I'll switch to edit mode, and you'll notice that the cage has been subdivided as well. Number 2 just subdivides the mesh, but then leaves the cage alone. And also these are bound to your 1, 2, and 3 hotkeys, so you can go 1, 2, 3. So it's very fast, very easy to change between subdivision modes. And if you want to increase or decrease the number of subdivisions, you can use your page up and page down hotkey. So page down will actually decrease the number of subdivisions until you go back to a non-subdivided result. And then page up will continue to increase the number of subdivisions. And it actually supports going all the way up to subdivision level 11. And if you just keep subdividing, eventually you'll get a warning. It says, warning, 1 or more objects is a high poly count. The approximate poly count is going to be 3 million. Are you sure you want to subdivide? And then you can actually choose yes or no. And this is good because it prevents you from making mistakes and accidentally causing program instability if you try to subdivide an object too far. So I'll go ahead and hit OK, and you'll notice that the program starts chugging along, and it actually managed to subdivide this to level 9 just fine. But for the demonstration of this video, I'm not going to increase it further than that. I also have two different modes that you can choose from. You can choose between relative and specific. And so relative is plus and minus, which is the same thing as page down and page up. Specific allows you to actually choose exactly what level you want the object to go to. So you can go back to 0 and hit set, and it'll turn that back into a hardened cube. I have overlay options here, so you can toggle wireframes on and off, which is good if you're in object mode, so toggling on and off. And if you would like to see the SubD wireframe, you just got to make sure you're in a previewed subdivision, and then you can turn the SubD on and off, so you can see that the extra lines that are being added by the modifier become visible. If you're in edit mode, and you happen to have these sharp edges and you don't want those to show on your object, you can either click each of these off, like so, or you can just disable all or enable all. And that's great because if you're in the third subdivision mode, these bright colored lines can actually get in the way of allowing you to visualize problems with your object. So you can just turn those all off, and you can turn them back on if you want. Very easy. The advanced settings offer a lot of options. So if you turn that on, you'll see you can use a custom render level if you want. So let's say you change that to like level 5, and then you set your specific level to level 1. You can preview a low quality subdivision in the viewport, and then you can render at a high quality subdivision there. You can change your vertex quality. Lower numbers is less quality, higher numbers is higher quality. You can choose whether or not you want to use creases. You can choose whether or not your UV smoothing is smooth and keeps the corners, or sharp. You can change between Catmull Clark and simple. Chances are you probably want Catmull Clark. And then you can disable any conflicting modifiers. So for instance, let's say that you have another subdivision surface in here. And right now it's at the bottom of the stack, so it's actually overriding the quick subd one. And so the next time you apply a subdivision level and hit set, it will disable the subdivision modifier that was conflicting, and it actually moves the quick subd modifier to the bottom of the stack. Chances are you want the subd modifier at the bottom of the stack because you're just using this as a quick toggle on and off preview in order to find problems with your object. Hence the name quick subd. If you don't want to keep the modifier at the bottom of the stack, you can just uncheck that, and then you can move that back up. And then whenever you apply your next subdivision level, it will just keep it right where it's at. It won't move it to the bottom of the stack. Chances are you probably want that turned on though. The pick best shading is kind of the meat of this add-on. So basically, if you choose flat shading, and then the next time you set a subdivision level, it will choose the best shading for that. And if you don't like that, if you want to keep your shading, you can just turn that off. You can turn on flat shading, and the next time you subdivide, it will retain the flat shading. And it'll also retain your object's auto smooth, whether that's turned on or off. So chances are you want that turned on. And the show poly count warnings does exactly what it says. If you try to choose an extremely high subdivision level and hit set, you'll get those pop-up warnings saying, hey, do you want to subdivide? The approximate poly count's 50 million. So chances are you want that on. If you no longer want the subdivision modifier enabled, so right here, you can just click delete modifier, and it will delete the subdivision modifier and return your object back to its original shape. And let's say that you want to reset all of your settings back to default. You can just click this. It will get rid of the advanced settings, and it'll actually reapply a modifier on there if it's missing, because that's just the default behavior of the reset button. It will add a subdivision modifier back. If you don't want that, you can just delete it. And let's say that you've increased the subdivisions on your object and you like the way that looks, and you want to apply the modifier so that it becomes permanent. You can just hit apply modifier. Boom. So now that is a permanent change, and you can continue to work on the object as is. So where this program really shines is, let's say you have multiple objects selected, like so, and you've got these, and you select all of these objects in your scene, and you want to quickly preview a subdivision result on these. First of all, let me reset my settings, reapplies a subdivision modifier to all of these, and you can just toggle on and off very quickly. You can use your page up and page down keys to increase the number of subdivisions on those, or you can set a specific subdivision level, so you can say I want level 5 to be on all of these. Hit set. That works great. It also works with relative mode, so like if this one is a really low subdivision level and you select all of these and you increase these, then the other ones will increase by 1 level, and this one here will also increase by 1 level. So that's a pretty neat feature of the relative. And more importantly, when you're ready to apply your modifiers and you hit apply, hit OK, it will apply all the modifiers to every single object. So that's a fantastic feature of this. So you might be wondering why exactly you would want to be able to quickly subdivide your object and also quickly unsubdivide your object. So I have an example here. This is a cube and everything appears to be fine. The shading looks good. And then when you switch to your edit mode, everything looks to be connected. There don't appear to be any major problems. However, if I go ahead and toggle my subdivision preview on, you can quickly see that there are some issues with it, and you can see there's some shading and some pinching issues going on here. And so thanks to the subdivision preview, I was able to just quickly turn that on, and then I can select the offending faces, delete those, then I can select these edges here, and then I can do grid fill, and now you can see that everything looks great. The object is pillowing out just as it would if it was a completely watertight object and all of the vertices were merged together. And then when you're done previewing that, you just switch back to your unsubdivided result just by clicking the 1, 2, or 3 hotkeys. So hopefully you find this add-on useful, and thanks for watching.